Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Agreeable Gray Area podcast. As always, I am your host, Elle. I'm recording on this lovely October 15th afternoon. I wanted to record earlier, but I actually went out last night soberly. Did not have any drinks with my friend. She didn't have any drinks either. And we got home like, I don't know, after 2 a.m. And it was, it was a great and fun evening. But it was such a huge contrast from the weekend that I had before. Last weekend, where I actually went to a wedding in Detroit, and the person who was getting married, my friend, was a friend from college, and a lot of my college friends were there, and we were just hanging out, catching up, drinking. Granted, I don't think we were drinking as much as we were back in college, but we were still, like drinking. Since I've been seeing my trainer, I've been trying not to drink as much, but I knew I wasn't going to not drink at this wedding because A, it's a wedding, it's rude not to drink. And B, it's like when you're reconnecting with old friends, you kind of, in a way, fall back into old habits, but we didn't go as hard, of course, because, we're all old and withering. But, like, it was just great to catch up with them and just see like what they're doing, how like they're just evolving, like they're all doing fantastic, and like I love them a lot, and like they're just some of the best people on the face of the earth. Like I'm very lucky and fortunate to have them as, to call them as my friend. I won't lie, like it is hard because like a lot of them either live out of state or live pretty far away, so we don't get to see each other as often. And it's and like when you think about, you know, growing up, like when you're like in your like, when you're going through like elementary school, middle school, high school, you're around the same people all the time. So like for a good 12 years of your life, you're pretty much around the same people. You get to know them, you get to know of them. And then you go to college, and it's not as many of the same people, but there's still a lot of people around you all the time, like constantly. And sometimes, like, there's always something to do. You got your friends who are, might actually be your roommates. I was fortunate enough for junior and senior year, my roommates were my friends, and like they were the ones at the wedding too. So like it was just great to, see them again and reconnect, of course. I'll be in the same room like we used to be. But, in college, like, you join like extracurriculars, groups, activities, and you're constantly around people again. You're busy, you're doing things. And then after college, some of us go to grad school, sometimes out of state, sometimes within the state. Some of us may not get into grad school. Some of us don't bother applying to grad school, like I didn't bother applying. And a lot of us end up just moving elsewhere. Like some people got a job in Texas, some people get a job, like out of state, and then they just sort of, you know, continue on with their lives. I unfortunately had to move back home because I couldn't find a job right after college. And yeah, I was trying to actually move to Boston because when I visited Boston when my sister was graduating, I fell in love with the city and I wanted to like move and live there, but that unfortunately didn't work out. So I moved back home to South Florida, and it was just it was kind of a shock to the system. Not an immediate shock, but just it, it was weird going from having a lot of freedom being able to get anywhere because I was able to walk anywhere. I didn't need a car, to not having a car, not having a job, and not really having, you know, like the friendships that I had developed while I was in college. Like usually people who like didn't go away to college and maybe stayed home and went to college had like a different experience than what I experienced. So like when I reconnected with some of my old friends, it was hard to just like, go from going to parties and hanging out and doing a lot of things to just hanging out with like two or three people and we're just sitting around drinking in a friend's place, which isn't bad. It's just, when you're single and young, you're trying to also like meet people, but there wasn't really anybody to meet and there wasn't really many ways to meet people. And when you live in a car infested or car dependent uh, area, there isn't really many ways to really get around. So I had to pretty much start the whole slow build from constantly being around people, through pretty much all my life. Because I'm also the youngest of seven. So, I've always had like siblings in the house and everything, and like my parents, to going away to college and being around people, to, coming back home, having like rules, having no freedom, and just kind of being dependent on people. Like it was very hard to try to like, start creating friendships and relationships with others, and also reevaluating the friendships and relationships that you had with the people that you already know. So I was in desperate need of some friends. I was in desperate need of finding my people again. And like these people were of course going to look and act different than the people that I'd grown so accustomed to, from college for like, several years. It was hard to find people who were ambitious. I don't know if that was just the culture of South Florida, at least at the time. It's definitely changed. Or maybe I've just changed and, found better people. Um yeah, it was hard to find people who were ambitious. It was hard to find people who were uplifting, I guess. It was hard to find people. It was just hard to find my people. And I, got a job, and it was still hard to, make friends from that job. And then I got another job, and I stayed at that job for about 3.5 years. And, the culture of that job, because the culture of companies do matter. Like the culture of that job, like they weren't the type to go to happy hour after work. Everybody was about 10 plus years older than me. So they would just go home because they had kids, a spouse, like real adult responsibilities. While at the time I was like this 23-year-old, 24-year-old chick who, was just trying to, I don't know, I was just trying to, find my new normal. While they've already established their normal, I was still trying to find my new normal. Because at the time, it was only about 2-3 years since I had graduated from college. So, in retrospect, it wasn't really that long. Fortunately, I'd made like a few friends from that job, but I'd say like I've made like 2 close friends from that job. But, one of my friends from that job ended up, moving back home, and then like I made another friend at that job, and I was there for about a year until I ended up changing jobs because I just needed to progress my career. At the time, I was there for, you know, 3 years, and I was just assuming that this was the best it could be. But I was really glad to actually just like make that leap because it's necessary to get out of your comfort zone. And I, just needed to. But still, like, I still didn't really like go to happy hours after work, even though I made those friends because they just weren't the type to do happy hours. Nothing wrong with that. I get that. It was just it was just like a little difficult because, I guess I'm an extrovert. I've been realizing I'm an extrovert with like introverted hobbies like video games and anime and podcasting. Like it's literally just me here. I don't have like a producer. I'm the producer. But it was, like it was just very difficult to, I guess, have friends that would just stay and like create that sort of consistency, that sort of consistent bond that I really desperately needed. Like I even designed an app to help people make friends. Like I'm actually still working on it to create it, but I actually started that in 2018, so 4 years ago. I've been seeing on TikTok a lot lately how people are having trouble, making new friends. And it's pretty much like what I've been saying this entire episode, like you're around people constantly and then your close friend gets a new job and then they move somewhere and et cetera and so forth. So what a lot of people, including myself, did and still do is, they go on dating apps to try to meet people. Because, like, we're also lonely and we want like an intimate connection. So we go on dating apps to, kind of kill two birds with one stone, or also, for dating or just sex, which is, fine too. There are people who do go on dating apps to make friends. I would see a lot of profiles that say, like, hey, I have a girlfriend. My girlfriend knows I'm on this. I'm just here to make friends. One of my good friends I met earlier this year through Bumble. He's gay. He put it in his profile. It's like, hey, I'm just here to make friends. He thought it was weird how the Bumble friendship part of the app wouldn't include women, even though he is gay. And I think that is weird because like he's gay. Why can't he just have women friends? So, like when I was, dating, I like I would meet these guys and it would just be, I want to say like a shit show. Like some of these men were cool. Some of these men I'm actually still friends with. And then there were some men who, like even prior to meeting, like how they would act on the app was just very hostile, very angry, very concerning, scary, like, so of course I wouldn't meet them, but it would just be, you know, you match with them, like you swipe right on them because they just seem like, decent men. And then you start talking to them and then like they just get very fucking angry and frustrated and annoyed. And granted, like we're all jaded from these dating apps, so it's not really, it's not necessarily that. It's just more so like you're being totally fake, and now you're throwing like this temper tantrum because I had to reschedule because I have my own life, and I don't know, somebody on a podcast taught you that if a woman reschedules, it means like they're lying or trying to control something, or you're just getting frustrated, and or whatever bullshit you decide to believe, that morning. But it sort of made me think how, and like my therapist has this theory where kind of like pretty much what I was saying at the beginning of this podcast, where, you go and, yeah, so from like grade school, you all the way through, you know the people, or you at least know of the people. And then you go to college and you're still around people a lot, and like you may not know the weirdo or the loner really, but you still have a better idea of who they may be because at least somebody may have like a class with them that you may know, or so the degrees of separation between you and the incredibly hostile person isn't that far. Then you graduate, people move, go to different jobs. You're trying to find, your new people. You get shoved into this dating app world. And then you find like the people who never really could create relationships with people, who never really learn how to communicate with women, who never really learn how to communicate in general. And you're just supposed to navigate through that. My therapist says like he understands why people get into very abusive, shitty relationships because this person who you don't really know sold you a lie. And now you're in this relationship with them and they're very shitty, but you love them and you're hoping that they would be like how they were at the beginning. But that's just because they learn how to be amazing at the beginning, and then once they have you, they're just abusive, manipulative, narcissistic, and just shitty overall. And this goes for any gender. I'm not necessarily specifying a gender. It's just the reason why I mentioned men is because I date men. So I remember, like, just to throw this out here real quick, I remember like seeing on the news how the students of Stoneman Douglas knew that they weren't surprised that the Parkland shooter was who he was because of, just how he is, or how he was, at least while they were all in school together. And yeah, so it's in a way like to be expected that we have a good understanding of people, but we have a better understanding of individuals when we are part of that community and like really know and understand that community, if that makes sense. Granted, with that said, there are still, people within our own lives, within our own communities that we don't really know how they are until you date them or like, become really close friends with them. Like there was this one guy that I dated for, like on and off for like a year and a half. Like, he was never really like a boyfriend. He was just a fancier term as a dalliance. he was a dalliance of mine to sound fancy. And we weren't in the best place in our lives. Like he and I had both had like very tragic deaths in our family recent, like, probably within a year of each other. And I don't know about him. I think he was, shitty before his tragic death in his family. But I know that when my cousin had died in the car accident Christmas morning 2013, it definitely changed my viewpoint on life. I started to really evaluate just about everything. I always had like this list of, I wouldn't really call it a bucket list. It was more so just 3 things I got to do before I feel comfortable dying early, just in case I happen to die early. And I hadn't done anything on that list. It was literally 3 things. It was, and I'll tell you, it was to fly a plane. No, not to fly a plane, goddamn. It was to go on a plane, have sex, and see snow. And to this day, there's still one thing I haven't done, which was see snow. And, and I was just thinking how like I got to just start living my life. Because my cousin and I were the same age. And so it was just a massive shock to the system. And so, like, I was dating this guy, and so before his family member died, he was the type of guy to be like, oh, all of my ex-girlfriends are crazy. Like, which is a massive red flag. This was, 7 years ago about, so like, I don't know if I knew of that as a red flag. Or maybe I was just giving him the benefit of the doubt because, like I knew him from college, like we had mutual friends, things of that nature. But there was always just like, I knew that he wasn't going to be like a serious relationship in my life in terms of, like I never really wanted to introduce him to like my family or anything. It's just like at the time I lived with my parents, so it's like he had to meet them. If I had it my way, that wouldn't have been the case. But, like he was just somebody in my life who I spent a lot of time with, and like we were, of course, like, we were like intimate with. But when he had, like his tragic incident that happened, his tragedy that happened to him, he, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like I'm just like being nice. I wouldn't because he doesn't really deserve that. He I feel just, he was shitty beforehand, just with like a nice guy smile and, that perceived sort of kindness. But it was more so just a way of manipulation because he doesn't really know how to form relationships properly. And I feel as though like his tragedy just sort of made that worse because he didn't really know how to process emotions well. And that just sort of made him worse. And, I was young and, stupid. So, of course, like, I was, I guess, in a way, like, giving him the benefit of the doubt. But, like, he, because he's a shitty human being, like, he never, like, really spoke about, like, or asked about, like, the tragedy that I myself was going through. Like, I was, of course, like, fine on the outside because as a black woman, you just have to be. But of course, like I wasn't on the inside. I was doing things, yeah. Like, you know, it was, like I joined like improv. I bought my home, like I had like a great job and everything. But that was like me going after my goals, my, my passions, my what I wanted to do. It was in direct correlation of just the hardships that were going on in my personal life. Like with my cousin passing, and then my parents like splitting up briefly, and me still living with my parents, and then them getting back together, which was, in my opinion, like a really stupid idea. But not my circus, not my monkeys. And so, and this was like around 2014, like all like the 2013, 2014 was just really shitty. And then in 2015, I was like, my New Year's resolution is to stop giving any fucks. I had ran out of fucks. And to this day, I still have never been able to replicate the amount of no fucks that I had that year. Like, I just needed to do my own thing and do it like yesterday. That's how I felt. Because I was like, yo, if my cousin can die at my age, I can die at any moment. So I got to really just do the things. And I'd gotten a really great job. I had, um, you know, bought my place. I had joined an improv class, whom, like I'm still friends with some of the people within my improv class to this day. And I didn't know that that was going to be probably one of the best years of my life, simply because I really took that New Year's resolution all throughout the year. And it just made me really see things differently. Granted, I was still dating that guy, like on and off, but I also, because, the guy is just a piece of shit, that year he just didn't bother wishing me a happy birthday. And like, I remember having this conversation with him saying, like, why did you feel that you needed to punish me? Like, what did I do to deserve that? I said something along those lines. And it always kind of stuck with me in terms of who this person is. And like, he was just not someone to really just like bring me down. Like, he wasn't like worth it. And that caused me to rejoin Tinder. And then I ended up meeting this fantastic man whom I'm still friends with to this day. Like, he actually came and visited me this year in February. He was like a breath of fresh air because honestly, to this day, he is still he's like the best date that I've ever been on in my life. Like, as sad as that may sound. And I don't know if it was just because of where I was in my life, but he was just needed, this man that I went on a date with, because of just how he treated me, how he spoke to me. It was just very necessary. And I was going through kind of a lot at that moment. Like, of course, I wasn't, in my best frame of mind. And also, I was in the process of closing on my home, which, if any of you have ever gone through that process, it's a month-long headache and a half. Because all that happens during that month is your mortgage broker calling you saying that they're going to take more money out of your credit card. And you have no choice but to say yes, because if you say no, you're not getting the home. So you're just like, you're just trying to figure out what to, like how much all this is going to cost, and if you can afford everything, and if you can pay off your credit card, and if this is a good idea, and maybe you should just, move to Cabo. But so I was in the process of closing on my home, and I don't even know why I decided to go on this date with this guy, because I remember he sent me a selfie of himself, like, hey, look out for this guy. And I was like, okay. And I sent him a selfie of me, and I looked pissed. I was not happy. I was like stressed. I was, like, here we go. Here's this date with this guy. But it turned out to be like absolutely fantastic. He was in town from Boston. And, I have family in Boston, so even to this day, I still go and see him. Like we're just friends. Like, I even got to meet his fiance, and his fiance is a wonderful woman. But every time I think back on that date, like after the date, I just felt great. It was just like a reminder from the universe, from God, from whoever you believe in, that this is the type of feeling that you need. It was the type of feeling that I needed. It was the type of feeling that I missed. It was the type of feeling that I didn't remember, I didn't remember because it's been so long. Like, it's been like so long after college. I mean, at the time it was like 2-3 years, but with like my cousin passing away, like living with my parents, and like being with like this shitty guy who I just felt like I needed to always give the benefit of the doubt, because he was, like a friend from college, and like, we were just, I guess, trying to see where things would go. It was just like that date was just exactly what I needed, to the point that even like if me and that shitty guy, like he and I would like, occasionally like hook up and meet and what have you, I didn't even care when he texted me. I didn't even care like how long it's been. I just didn't care. It was like a confirmation that like, oh, men can be awesome. And honestly, like since then, I have met and gotten to know and had the pleasure of befriending so many awesome men, like so many awesome people. And I've been, able to like really just start to mature, and, I've been able to see how people are, and I've been learning to just kind of accept how people are. And people are going to say one thing, people are going to say this is how they are, people are going to blame other people. And then there's going to be the people who recognize the bullshit, who stay away from the bullshit, and who are just trying to undo their own bullshit. And that was what I was missing from college, because you're always doing things, you're always like around people, and like some people are maturing at different levels and different parts in their lives, and they can advise you, and they can teach you, and they can, kind of guide you. But after college, you just have to kind of guide yourself. and you have to, learn who to listen to, what works for you in terms of listening, and overall just the people that you want in your life. And, like when I think back on my younger self and, from there to where I am now, from always like drinking, working out was not even like a thought, and going from just, last night going out with, a very good friend of mine that I met through like meetups and like a friend of a friend sort of thing, and how she's like on a similar, like she's on like a similar path, like a similar wavelength as me, and like how we just went out and didn't drink alcohol at all, even though I was very tempted to. And at some point she was like, "Oh, if you want a drink, I don't mind getting a drink." And I said, "No, let's not." And we just went out the whole night and didn't drink. I guess like what I'm saying is seeing the people in your life and truly appreciating them, and how like they respect and understand like your goals and where you're trying to go, and they're not trying to bring you down. They're trying to uplift you. They know that there is space at the top for everybody. Like I've mentioned on a previous episode, that we're all trying to climb our own mountains. It's just very aggravating when somebody tries to come onto my mountain and tries to drag me down. But it's absolutely amazing and fulfilling when, you find people, your people, who are helping you up your mountain, and you're helping them up their mountain, and you're helping them conquer their mountain, and they're helping you conquer your mountain. Whether it's just to like, help them start a podcast, to just making sure they don't drink for the night. You definitely need those people in your life, and they're out there. Like if you were to ask me, you know, back when I was 24, like 7, 8 years ago or so, if I would be able to find people like that in South Florida, I would have laughed right in your face and be like, no, there is nobody with that kind of mindset in South Florida. Everybody's shallow, everybody's shitty, everybody just thinks about themselves. But I wish I could go back to my younger self and just be like, yo, Al, you were stupid as hell back then. And that's okay, because of course you were stupid as hell at 24. You're supposed to be. But you do find and create friendships and relationships with people that are meaningful and are uplifting and are needed and necessary. So, yeah, with that said, thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate you all. You guys are all amazing. I love it when you guys text me, message me about, the episode, and if I love, just conversing with you all. Like it's awesome. It's really great, and I wouldn't be here without you all. So y'all have a good one, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. Thanks.